being on guard for danger when I don't have to be. This is a real skills workshop for being calm and confident. And the level of on guardness makes a difference, doesn't it, Kathy?
It really does. I think so many of us probably are over on guard, but even if we're not on guard enough, when we're not reacting to what's real in front of us, we're expending a lot of energy and we're not reacting to the reality. So I don't know, maybe some of you have friends or family like this. I have someone in my life that just jumps at everything, is very hyper, very like everything's a threat. It's very, very hard to relate to her and react. And she's always tired. She's always just like exhausted because her guard level is like ping to the top. So like someone shutting a door too loud will make her jump. And that level of adrenaline and tension in our body is not actually good for us. So I think this is just a really great topic to talk about, because when we can start dialing into reality and dealing with the guard level we need, where there are threats around us sometimes, and it's good to have some guard level, we start having more energy for life in general. We start relating to people in a more authentic way, and we're gentler on our bodies. Our systems are not like revved all the time. So I love that you're here. We're diving into this topic. Thank you so much for being the kind of people that want to recalibrate your guard system.
Mm-hmm. I'm very tender knowing how many people on the planet right now are revving their engines and being on guard and have been left. We're in October 2022. We've been in a pandemic zone for a couple of years, and it's not the only thing that's been going on. There's a lot going on in the world.
War, yeah.
And when I look at people driving, which I do, when I see people on the trail, I live in a beautiful area. I walk a trail that's very popular. Today on the trail, about half the people, I would say, are in a place of hypervigilance, just walking amidst the fall leaves on a beautiful day. You can feel it, like they're vigilant about me as a stranger. And so what do? Maybe they look away, they turn away, they stop and they get off the trail. There's a level of, and that's okay with me. I just want to be clear. Like I've been in hypervigilance before. I know what it feels like, and I know how depleting it was on my body. And I'll say this, a part of me thought I was just the careful kind of person. Like I said in one of the emails, I am the kind of person that my nature is to be on guard. I want to know what the rules are. I want to know how to do something safely, whether it's going up and down stairs or going and flying an airplane in the clouds. I've done both. Stairs a lot more often than flying in the clouds. But there's a way to do that where what I didn't realize was that my stress was building up, I got to a place where me being relaxed was never below an 8 on the vigilance scale. And so if I completed a project and it was done and I was done for the day, I never really relaxed more than an 8. And when I was asleep, maybe a 7, just because I was asleep. I'm guessing that if you had a video of me sleeping, that I would be like jerking more. And so that was really depleting. It was very expensive. And if we couldn't change our nature, the usefulness of this call would be 0. The great news is that some of the emotional technologies that we use, like EFT tapping, and if you're not familiar with it, thrivingnow.com/tapping. We're not going to be teaching it today, but you're going to see us using it for this particular skill. It allows us to do a bunch of different things that we're going to be covering today. It helps restore what I would consider now a natural level of on guardness, from pretty chill to, this actually is life-threatening right now, and I need all of my resources online right now. Nothing else matters. That there is a time, but hopefully we don't live in that very often. and everything in between from, like what's the right level of being aware? What's the right level of being alert? What's the right level of being like, okay, vigilantly on guard, ready, and then crisis, emergency kind of level.
I think it's important to mention, and some of you may know this, but we only have so much energy in our system at any given time. So if we are in like guarding mode, our body can't do as much with rest and digest. It's not repairing cellular level things. It's not like helping our body renew as much. So when we're always in guard mode, there is a cost we're paying for our bodies to like recover and heal and feel vital. So if we're constantly, pushing the adrenaline button, we're not really getting that time to like let our body go, oh, it's safe now. I can do some house cleaning, so to speak. So I think that's just important to know that we do balance that. And I think, Rick, what you said about risk tolerance, I think there are different people with different risk tolerances. So, probably there's a Gaussian and we can move it around depending on the person. Like some people are like, yeah, I'm willing to try to stand on the top of the stairs and bounce and see what happens when or let my 2-year-old do that. But outside of that, there's also all the trauma and the experiences we've had in our lives that haven't been resolved. So they're driving us often to react in a way that might be, our calibration might be like, oh, this is a 3 in terms of fear. But whether we learned it when we were a child or we had a bad experience, where our body, our system is reacting like it's an 8 or a 9 or a 12. So we're burning a lot of energy we don't need to burn. And we're not able to be present at the same level because we're so much in that like guarded space. So our interest is not in like you get to have your risk tolerance what it is, but we want it to be authentic to the situation and to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So for many people, attending a Zoom session workshop around an edgy topic like their level of on guardness might have you feeling on guard. And I'm curious if you're willing to share in the chat. If one was like imagining someone pretty checked out, like, maybe reading a book with a book resting on their face because they're really pretty, not, don't notice the door slamming, things like that. All the way up to 10, which is as vigilant as you can imagine yourself being. Where are you right now? What? Okay. So right now you're at a 10. One person said that. And remembering that alertness.
6 and 7, a 2.
Sweet.
And there's nothing wrong. Please, it's not a judgment. This isn't like you should be somewhere, but noticing where you are. And then we're going to take you through an exercise in a little bit that Rick has that can really help you normalize that a little bit. So we got a 3, some 5, a 6, another 6, 5. So yeah. So just noticing authentically where you're at is great. I'm probably a little higher than I would normally be because I've been doing some stressful things. So like that kind of residual is carrying over. So I'm probably a point or 2 higher than I would normally be doing a call with all of you, which is, I tend to be like around a 4 or 5, I think, when I do calls, because I want to really bring the best I can. We have another 6, another 5.
Neat. So I'd like you to feel into what would be for you today, if you would just guessed, in order to be present with us as a circle and take in what is useful to you, make use of it for yourself and your life to come, what level of awareness, alertness, again, like 1 to 10, do you feel would be a sweet spot? As Kathy gave us an example, like right now, I'm hearing you're a little higher than a 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that
Okay.
would 4 or 5 would be my normal, and I think that's appropriate. We're here leading a call. We want to make sure we're really present. There's some like activation in positive way to
Mhm.
make sure we're bringing our best to everyone.
Right. So, like for me, when I asked the question, I checked in and I was about a 6.
Mhm.
I had just tapped into a time period in my life where I was pretty hypervigilant, and the echo of that was still sticking around. And like Kathy, for me, facilitating a workshop, a 4 or 5 has enough energy moving. If I start drifting down to about a 3, I'm actually checking out. If I'm going up 6, 7, that would be an indicator for me. And just having that as an awareness, I believe, is a step that we can do. You don't have to do tapping or anything else. If you're just aware that, oh, there's a scale, and right now I was at an 8. And a 3 would be sweet for me.
We have a
A
bunch of 2s and 3s, and 3 to 4 is 3 for the sweet spot.
Yeah. So, would you like to lead a tapping to invite our nervous system, our body, to recalibrate a bit to our sweet spot for our time together? Would you?
I'm glad to do that. And please notice your system may feel some resistance to this. We're just inviting, we're not forcing. If your system is having trouble with this, it's just a sign you probably have some traumas. And it's like, oh, I'm afraid to dial down the emergency scale, if that makes sense. So
Mhm.
just notice, don't force, don't judge. Karate chop. Even though I've been pretty revved
Even though I've been pretty revved
and I've been guarding a lot,
and I've been guarding a lot my whole life,
I invite my system to notice how safe I actually am.
I invite my system to notice how safe I actually am.
I'm basing some of my guarding on old experiences,
I'm definitely basing some of my guard on old experiences,
and I might be safer than I think I am.
and I might be safer than I think I am.
Top of the head, I have a lot of stress in my body.
I have a lot of stress in my body.
Eyebrow, I tend to keep the guard up.
I tend to keep my guard up.
Side of the eye, that might have been really smart when I was younger.
That was really smart when I was younger.
Under the eye, and in different situations, really smart again.
And in different situations, it's really smart again.
Under the nose, but right this minute, I'm sitting safely in my chair.
But right this minute, I'm sitting safely right here.
Chin, I'm here with people that are pretty cool.
I'm here with people that are pretty cool, that this matters to them.
Yeah. Collarbone, what if I could let my guard down a little bit?
What if I could let my guard down just a little bit?
Under the arm, let my body relax.
Let my body relax.
Top of the head, and actually be present here with, and not so present with the fear of things that might happen.
Be present here, and not so much with the fear about what might happen.
And just take a breath and notice what comes up for you. If your body's like, oh yeah, that's great, wonderful. If it's like, oh no, that's not safe, it's okay. Like, see what you notice about that. So this is all data that we're gathering. If it doesn't feel safe, maybe ask it why. Why doesn't it feel safe? What do you think will happen if that feels like a safe place to go for you to look? And
Someone asked, how about a meditative state? What number is that? Again, you can feel in your own body. Like meditative to me can be like I'm really quieting my whole system down. And meditative can be like my awareness is vast. And I would call that vast awareness not on guardness, but like activated my awareness at a pretty high number. Not typically where I stay in meditation, but that's where you can fluctuate. On guardness tends to have an anxiety, worry, alert, vigilance to it. That's typically where I use the scale. So as you go up to 7, 8, 9, 10, you would probably notice that your body is got more adrenaline, more alertness. You're looking at more with hard eyes for, like, if you're looking at someone, you would have kind of a hard eye look. Soft eyes would be more like the 2, 3, 4, like I'm present with you and I'm allowing. There's more allowing. You feel pretty much on the calm, confident side. Mm-hmm.
An analogy I come up with, like when I still had my cat, we trusted each other. So if I felt the soft brush of fur, there was a relaxation. There was like, oh, I trust that this being is coming over to cuddle with me or to spend time with me, and it's going to be probably a good experience. Versus if I felt, I don't like snakes, so if I felt like a snake kind of feel on my arm, I would be very, very vigilant. So if you can just imagine, like when we feel safe in the universe, what's coming to us, we think of as like a trusted friend just putting a hand on our shoulder, and we feel safe and open to that. Versus something that's coming in, like that the universe might be sending things that are scary. And someone said, what if I let my guard down and something bad happens? And I think it's important. It's a great question. I want to point out that when we're little, we're trying to understand the world. We don't have a lot of experience. We don't have a lot of logic. And the adults around us don't actually understand often how our brains were working. Like for most of us on this call, there wasn't a lot of understanding about how children's brains work very differently than adults. So some of us became very superstitious as a way to try to control our worlds. And it was the best we could do at that time. And yet many of us carry those superstitions forward. And I notice that I'll do that sometimes. Like if I let my guard down, something bad will happen. That's like a superstitious thing. If I always keep my guard up, then I will be safe. Versus bad things can sometimes happen. And it's good if I can bring my guard up quickly, but I don't have to always be like defensive. It's not when it becomes, for me, it's a superstitious thing. If I'm paying the price by always being on guard to try to prevent bad things from happening. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, this is one of those clues. When this is so common in emotional freedom coaching that I do, this aspect of, well, if I let my guard down, something bad will happen. Its cousin is, if something good's happen, something bad is going to follow. As Kathy said, as children, we make really like general associations. I was having a really good time, best time of my life, and wham, I got punched in the gut emotionally or even physically. So I better never feel that good again. If you were around people that were unstable, then being on guard as a child is very much more a primitive brain kind of thing. And so that's what I'd like to do a tapping round on is, hey, on guard for my inner child, for me back then, it was a different kind of thing. It really was on or off, on or off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though it was on or off.
Even though it was on or off.
It might have been stuck on for decades now.
It might have been stuck on for decades now.
What does it mean to have a range?
What does it mean to have a range?
I'm either on guard or I'm not.
I'm either on guard or I'm not.
Top of the head. I'm either on guard or I'm not.
I'm either on guard or I'm not.
Eyebrow. I am not so stupid to not be on guard.
I am not so stupid to not be on guard.
Side of the eye. I must be on guard.
It must be on guard.
All the time.
All the time.
For all possible threats.
For all possible threats.
And the eye. Wow, that is so exhausting.
That is so exhausting.
And knows. But if I let my guard down, something bad's going to happen.
If I let my guard down, something bad is going to happen.
And there's that on or off again.
There's that on or off again.
Collarbone. If I let my guard down, something bad's going to happen.
If I let my guard down, something bad is going to happen.
My poor, tender inner child.
My poor, tender inner child.
Under the arm. Couldn't differentiate.
Couldn't differentiate.
Couldn't discern what was going on.
Couldn't discern what was going on.
Even blame for stuff that was just an accident.
Even blame for stuff that was just an accident.
And I'm in the process of unwinding that now.
And I'm in the process of unwinding that now.
We could go, like, one of the things for each of us to explore is, when did I learn that I needed to be on guard? How old was I? Because that can give you a clue. If you're 2 or 3, then it really is going to be on or off. And there's some work that you can do. We have a group coaching program, the Thriving Now Circle. And thrivingnow.com/circle is where you can learn more if you're not already a Circle member. It's the kind of thing that we love doing in our group sessions, because it helps all of us. Because this is a universal experience. Some people, again, in order to not be on guard, maybe they use substances in order to numb out that part of them. Right. Or to be able to go out and live life, because they can't go out and have a good time unless their guard gets turned off by chemicals. That's a thing. A lot of people just avoid. They find a comfort spot that's pretty narrow. And that's where, as people who want thriving, this is where it starts getting really uncomfortable. You become aware, like, I am really on guard about everything. Everything I want to do has an on guard level. Just to give, some realness, it took me 6 months of tapping every day on what was causing me to feel on guard or anxious or worried or things like that. But at the end of 6 months, I would put myself quite a bit more calm and confident. Now, for some people, it doesn't take them 6 months, but I had been in hypervigilance for all of my life, as far as my mom would say, for the first 30 years. But now I'm really in quite a different place.
Well, and I'd like to point back to that. If I let my guard down, something bad might happen. Things do happen sometimes that are not positive, but do you feel more resourced because you're mostly relaxed and able to respond? Or do you, I know that I feel if I'm constantly on guard, I don't really have the resources to deal with something new bad coming into my life. It's like I'm already, the knob has already turned to 11 and I'm just like, I can't deal with more. Versus if I let myself relax and calm and renew, then when something comes up that I need to deal with, I have the juice to do it.
Well, going back to the real skill of, okay, where am I now? Let's say there's something that you want to do in your life, and feeling overly on guard is a part of that. Could be going for a walk regularly. It could be something that you want to create or share or build, ask for a raise. It doesn't matter what it is for you, but I'm curious if you're willing to share either the number about how, on that 1 to 11, we'll give it the 11 for the max. On that scale, how on guard do you feel? And again, you could put then a slash. How on guard do you really in your core feel is appropriate for that situation? It's not going to be 0. It's, again, like, if you find yourself, well, I'm either on guard or I'm at risk, that's an indicator that you're either dealing with zeros or 10 or 11. Does that make sense? Like, oh, it's unsafe to go for a walk in the city. That would be like primitive brain saying it's black or white, it's safe or unsafe. It could be that the level of safety that you want is you're not going to meet it. But there's usually a sweet spot for awareness where if you're in that zone and you're doing something that you feel like your awareness is broad enough to be resilient. Let's see, what are we feeling? 7 could be a 5. Yeah. And that difference of a 7 and a 5 is enormous because it's an exponential scale or logarithm. I don't know what would you would call it. It's a scale that the difference between 5 and 7 isn't 2.
It's 2 decades.
It's a lot more than 2. The difference between 7 and 8 is like, wow. The difference between 8 and 10 is just so much more on guardness and all the anxiety and chemicals that come with that.
So I'd just like to invite everyone, if you could, like we've been talking a lot, just take a nice deep breath and just let yourself be right where you are right now. We've been kind of pulling you into like inviting you to feel into different things, but just feel into your body right now if you can, right in the spot you are. Let yourself, your butt on the chair, feet on the floor. And I really love the idea of just looking around the room you're in and just noticing, letting your body look for any active threat. And other than the fact that my trash is getting kind of full, I don't see any threats in my place. So like, just let yourself notice that. And that can bring you back. Like we've been kind of, looking into different scenarios. And I think it's really good to come back to ourselves right now. And Rick, do you want to go through that, the question you had in your the newsletter you sent out? I thought that was really good.
Which one are you talking about?
Like how on guard are you this minute?
Yeah. Well, I was going to have us imagine doing something, and like how on guard are we?
Okay. What can we do? The right here, right now.
Yeah, right here, right now. Yeah. Why don't you keep going? You're in the zone. So like right here, right now. If we ignore the workshop part of it and just in the space where you happen to be, how on guard do you feel? My family just came home. I heard the garage door go up, and I'm feeling like there's a higher level of on guardness that is creeping up for me.
Well, you're a father and you have little ones that are.
Yeah, and I'm wanting to focus, and like it's just my on guard level is creeping up 4, 5, 6, and it's starting to get up into that zone where there's less of a vibe of calm confidence. So, but as I look around the room and actually feel into the family and kind of where everyone is, it feels pretty good. I can be back in my 4, 5 zone.
Yeah, so we'd love for you to feel into where you actually are. Look around the space you're in. Notice what your on guard level actually is in this space. And just notice that. And then take a deep breath and just allow your logical brain. Like we often look with our entire being, like there's all this subconscious things going on. And just look around with your logical brain and for any danger that's there. And what does your logical brain evaluate you're on guard would be appropriate? Often that number is lower, but not always. So it's like, often I feel on guard at like a 6, but if I look around the space, there's no reason for me to be above a 3. There's like nothing, no reason for me to be any higher.
That's a very good point.
So I see some. So if you want to share like actual versus logical or something, so we can track that a little. Okay, yeah. Someone said it'd be rational for me to be at 3, but that person was in a 5.
Just to be clear, because we're getting a couple of things in the comments. What does 0 mean? Now, if you're using 0, then I would say you're using a fear scale. Like whereas 0 is I'm not feeling any fear or threat or anything like that. I'm using a different scale because, as someone said, it feels like I need to be a 0 because that's what, as if that is what's normal. We are animals. We are designed to have alertness. Even when we sleep, we keep an ear out. Some people more than others. So I am inviting people to view like 0 is when you're freed of your earthly existence. Okay. And you don't have anything to worry about anymore, for your earthly body. So we're putting a floor so that the range recognizes that, you still want to be responsive, even if not vigilant. So if the smoke alarm goes on at night, but you were really just in a wonderful deep sleep at a 1, you're going to shift from a 1 to something else. If you're not sleeping well, it can be that you're not going down to that 1, 2, 3 range where people fluctuate.
Someone said at 0, do we have a heartbeat? I think
not on my scale.
Not on your scale. Okay.
Now, and again, this is a little different than how we've used scales in tapping. This is the activation, alertness, awareness, presence scale, because I believe that a lot of people want to get to this absence of fear, and they never actually have that kinesthetic feeling of it. And when I was trying to do that, when calm confidence meant I wasn't afraid of anything, I felt absolutely like on top of the world and nothing could go wrong. All I had to do was drive a car and see one anus driving right on my butt. And like now my alertness level is up. Is that me? No, when I drive at about a 4 or 5 because I want to be alert and aware. I think that that's good and healthy and appropriate. If I'm out on a country road, there are bears and deer, maybe it'll lower to a 3 or 4. At night in fog, it might go up to a 6, 7. Calm confidence to me says there's a sweet range that we can tap into, and that will be palpable. Just like your heartbeat, your resting heartbeat is typically somewhere between 45 and 80 for each of us when you're relaxed and chilled. And it's unique for each person depending on their genetics and the like. In the same way, if you're calibrating your sweet spots, you get to know yourself. Like, oh, I'm getting up in that range where I'm starting to get a little jittery. I can bring it back to a 3 or 4 here. Is this making sense?
Yeah, I love it. I think people are rationally at 2 or 3, but it's the numbers are higher than that. No current threat, but I feel at an 8 overall. Someone said I feel 3, but my mind jumps ahead to what if, and that what if, that's very natural for people to kind of say what if happens. But I think a lot of us, if we've had trauma in our past, that's very active. It's much more active than it needs to be. So when we hear what if my recycling bin is piled a little higher than the top of the bin right now. Tomorrow's trash day. So there's part of my brain going, what if it all falls all over the floor and it makes a mess and the bag rips, and like my brain can go way down that. I think part of it is realizing, am I spending energy that's useful? If it gets me to, take the trash out and take care of it, great. But I think sometimes I'll spend so much time going down all the possible what ifs, including the things that are infinitesimally, like there's such a small chance of them happening. And I'm planning so I can be prepared, but I'm burning a lot of energy and I'm revving my engine the whole time I'm doing it. And it's not necessarily helpful.
Yeah. Even though I've tended to rev my engine.
Even though I've tended to rev my engine.
And I can definitely focus on what ifs.
And I can definitely focus on what if.
And that can be smart.
And that can be smart.
I'm wanting to learn a new skill.
I'm wanting to learn a new skill.
A skill of being able to target my alertness.
A skill of being able to target my alertness.
Top of the head. Well, that would be different.
That would be different.
Eyebrow. I'd love to be able to calm myself.
I'd love to be able to calm myself.
Out of the eye to a place that feels better to me.
A place that feels better to me.
A place that feels right for the actual circumstances.
A place that feels right for the actual circumstances.
Under the nose. A part of me may be holding on to my on guardness.
A part of me may be holding on to my own.
Chin, looking for things to activate me.
Looking for things to activate me.
How long? It takes a lot of energy.
It Takes a lot
to
of
be innate
hate.
of the arm. And sometimes I have to imagine threats
Sometimes I have to imagine threat
in order to stay at innate.
in order to stay at innate.
So nothing bad happens.
So nothing bad happens.
Top of the head. I really want to range.
I really want to rage.
See how true that is. Like I wanted a range. I wanted to feel like when it's time to savor that I can find that sweet spot. When it's time to be really present, because maybe I'm moving fast. Maybe the terrain is challenging and I want to be there. I want to climb that rock. I want to be up in that tree. I want to do something. I want to be amidst a group of people that I don't know. And yet I still see when you get this range, the cool thing is for a lot of people, the range starts having this upper end that still feels calm and confident. You feel activated, alive, aware, alert. It's like that profound meditative state where you become aware of things. But the edge of on guardness, if you're not really talking about active threats for our primitive brain survival, you can relax into it. And that to me is the target for this, and taking these small incremental steps. So I'm curious, we just did some tapping. How's your alertness just sitting here in your space? Did it move at all? And if it didn't move down or up wherever your sweet spot is, what came up for you? What came up for you that might be the resistance to adjusting from an 8 to a 6, for example?
And while people are typing, I want to add, our bodies kind of get addicted to the chemicals we get when we have a lot of stress. So sometimes there's a little bit of like, oh, I'm feeling calmer. That feels uncomfortable to me. I'm not used to feeling calmer. And our brain will go down the what if for like looking for danger even more to get that adrenaline and there's like, we get flooded with those chemicals. There is a little bit of a surge, and we can get so used to it that relaxing feels we're not comfortable. So we may actually have to practice tolerating feeling comfortable, tolerating feeling low stress, so that our system is like, oh wait, I don't know what this is. It's just scary, but it's actually a good thing for us.
I've got a question. Can on guard manifest in different ways than being scared?
Yeah.
So I'm experience what I would call resistance or withdrawing inside myself instead of what I think we're talking about here. So yes, if let's say that in a situation where there are people you don't know around, strangers, that your stranger danger is up at a 10. Okay. And that's really like, it's just so intense an experience for you to be on guard at a 10 that you can just make a decision. I don't do things like that. I don't go where. And so you end up, the mere thought of going there will be enough to withdraw. Like, no, that's an on guardness. The reality is that if you were to go do that, you would feel on guard at such an uncomfortable level that you withdraw from the experience, withdraw from life in order to not overwork your system or to put it at a strain. And this is what I was referring to, and also in one of the emails to everyone. So thank you very much for the question. When we start with the things that are happening in our life, where we're feeling more on guard than is really our sweet spot, logically, we look at it and go, I do need to have a certain amount of on guard, but a 3 or 4 would be enough for me going down the stairs. I don't need to be alert. Oh, I've got slippery socks on, 5 or 6. Okay.
But just for the time you're walking, then.
Or just the time I'm walking. And then once I get my shoes on, well, now I can calibrate back. You do that practice, and then you'll notice you'll want to do something, and I'm guessing that you will feel that like, oh, that would be on guard at a 10. And this is where you can use the very beautiful human capacity of imagining to take baby steps. Well, I imagine myself getting in the car. Okay, my on guard is at an 8. Driving, maybe a 5 or 6 would be better, more useful for my energy. A lot of times people have in the experience that like just going out and getting in the car or getting on the highway, well, now their on guardness went up to an 8. Well, that may be fine, but unless they have the skill where they practiced it, when they arrive at the event, they never like sit in the car and let that 8 drop back down to, well, my sweet spot for entering a space where I don't know anyone is like a 6. I want to get the vibe of it. Like, I want to get the vibe. It's okay for me to look around, look for the exits and things like that. But if you walk in at an 8 and then you add 2, panic, right? Does this make sense? We're energetic beings. If you turn up the volume from an 8 to do the next step in it, it's too much. And that's where we can find ourselves aware of it, like it'll be too much.
If you're driving along and you don't know the way maybe and you miss a turn, if you're at a 3 or 4 or 5, you can go, oh, I missed the turn, I'll go to the next spot. I know that if I've been into 9 or 10, I'm like, free, and I don't know that everybody's safe at that point. Like, I've seen people swerve off to try to make the exit when there's another exit they could have turned around on in another mile. And they're like risking their lives and others because they're so like hypervigilant and so fixated on, oh, I missed the exit, and it's the end of the world, if that makes sense. Like, they're not in their range is artificially high. So they actually put themselves somewhat in danger. And someone asked if it's possible for people to have under numbers, and I think that's absolutely possible. There's such a thing as collapse submit, or if we're a small child and we learn that we just can't, like, we kind of like the Jack in the Box when you kind of push the thing, like, I can't do it. So it's like, I give up and I'll just accept whatever comes to me. So if you find that your guard is very low when you think it should be a little higher, it's good to look at that and say, do I actually feel like I could protect myself? Is there something I can do, or have I given up on this particular act? Like, do I feel like if someone yells at me, I'm just going to fall in a ball in the corner and not try to defend myself or not try to get away? When we learn that, especially as little children, we've learned that we don't have the resources to take care of something. And as adults, when we have a lot of resources to take care of something. So I think there's both, we can be too stressed and we can be under stressed, if that makes sense. And stress is not necessarily bad. There's good stress. Like, if we always just sat in our quiet little bubble, most of us would get really like bored after a while. We wouldn't feel like we're growing or being strong. We want to have some good stresses in our lives, but we want to make sure that we're actually keeping the range in the appropriate place for what's going on. And not have it to be under like, oh, I can't do anything, so I'll just accept when everything happens, or I'm going to be so stressed that I'm going to over respond to what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And someone said, a part of me is wondering, is this possible?
We also had do I deserve to feel better? And I think they're both on the same, like,
I'm deeply aware that for those that have extremely high vigilance, that a 90-minute workshop is designed to give you an invitation and an exposure to some skills and processes. If someone said like driving automatically kind of puts them in an 8. So the skill, the practicing the skill is, okay, I just got in the car. How am I more alert or more vigilant? I'm really like feeling vigilant. Okay. Well, what if that's an 8, let's say. What if I was a 7? How would that change the way that I'm looking out the windows? You haven't even started the car yet. Maybe you tap your collarbone. Like, just imagine, like, okay, I'm in an 8. I'm about to drive. I feel like I'm more hyper vigilant than appropriately ready to be a driver, an aware, alert driver of what's going on around myself. And so if I'm in an 8 now, how do my eyes look out the window? And if you have a window, you can look out the window and imagine like, okay, I'm looking out now what I notice is that when I look out the window at a 6, 7, 8, I focus. I will pick something like there's a caterpillar tent in my tree.
How dare it?
I'm looking out the window at an 8. The problem is that I miss everything else around the other windows. And so like, oh, I noticed I kind of hyper fixated on that. Wonder what a 7 would be like. Oh, I actually have peripheral vision at I have peripheral vision at a 7. I don't have to move my head quite as much. What about a 6.5? Oh, my jaw relaxed a little bit. And drive at a 6.5 or start and have that as your sweet spot. You know, oh, I'm up to an 8 because that car, I didn't see it. Okay. So peripheral vision, you start like, how would I hold the wheel? If I'm at an 8, how do I hold the wheel? What about a 6.5? So I walked down the stairs. I fell down the stairs twice with my daughter when she was young. 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm taking her downstairs. I had slippers on. Guess what? Slippers are slippery. I don't have those slippers anymore. I have socks with grippies on them. But it took me a while to calibrate the level of vigilance because it went up to after the second one, I was stuck at a 9. Like I was going down so carefully that it actually wasn't as safe as being more present and fluid. And I needed to practice that little incremental. I needed to tap on the trauma and the fear that was there. Like, is she okay? You know, she's less than a year old when that happened. My own judgment, I shouldn't have looked down, even though she pointed, you know, there was a lot of noise. But going down the stairs, carrying a small child is a good 5, 6 for me. Like I've decided that's a good sweet spot. I pause at the top of the stairs. I kind of get my balance. I feel into like, you know, how strong an energy I have. And then I take steps. I keep my eyes in a certain place. And I haven't fallen since. I hope that makes sense. Like we can get thrown out of calibration, but the skill level is noticing where I am as I'm just so anxious. I feel like I'm going to like give it a number because a number brings your logical brain into it, and then feel what it might feel like just as an increment lower. Do you want to do a tapping before we take our quick break, Kathy? And then
yeah. So someone asked about driving. I think it's a great example because many of us drive and we find that stressful. So if it's okay, I'm just going to go there and just invite you to just imagine that you're in your car. Take a nice deep breath. And I'd like you just to feel for a moment how you would like to feel when you drive, ideally. You know, maybe grounded, calm, general, like alert, but not like hurting yourself. Just Imagine you're driving in a place you know, and notice what would you like to feel? And then tune into what you actually feel when you drive. And I'm going to lead the tapping for it being, most people are probably more vigilant than they need to be, but if you're under, you're welcome to change the words. Karate chop. Even though I tend to tune up my vigilance.
Even though I tend to tune up my vigilance.
And I'm more on guard than I'd like to be.
And I'm more on guard when I drive than I'd like to be.
I'm open to finding new ways to relax and be really present.
I'm open to finding new ways to be relaxed and present.
I think I'm actually safer when I'm relaxed and present.
I'm actually safer when I'm relaxed and present.
Top of that, I've been practicing being on guard for a long time.
I've been practicing being on guard for a long time.
My muscles for hypervigilance are very strong.
My muscles for hypervigilance are very strong.
Side of the eye. What if I just practiced relaxing for 10 seconds?
What if I just practiced relaxing a little tiny bit for 10 seconds?
Under the eye, while I'm still in the driveway.
I'm still in the driveway.
It might feel uncomfortable to my body.
It might feel uncomfortable to my body.
Jen, I haven't practiced this before.
I haven't practiced this before.
Collarbone, but I one time tied my shoelaces. It was really hard too.
Yeah, me. And one time, tying my shoelaces was really hard.
Under there, what if I just practiced being calm and present when I drove?
I practiced being calm and present when I drove.
Top of the head. I bet I could get pretty good at this in time.
I bet I could get pretty good at this in time.
And I'm curious how long it will take me.
I'm curious how long it'll take me.
Just take a nice breath. And like, even if you want, I've been doing this some for practicing with myself on things that I want to shift, like literally taking a drive around the block in a very safe space and then like in a good time when it's not raining or slippery or dark or whatever. And just like, okay, I'm going to practice in the driveway and I'm just going to drive around the block and just notice. And if I need to pull over and relax, just letting my system kind of switch a lot of people call it split screen. Okay, here's the very vigilant, here's the relaxed. Kind of letting myself shift back and forth. That means, okay, if a car comes out of nowhere, I can shift very quickly into that more alert state, but I don't have to drive that way all the time. So, and just like practicing that a little, it's often very surprisingly quick. Our system wants to use the least amount of energy it can to keep us safe. It wants to use that other energy for enjoying life and renewing and everything. So if we start giving it a pathway and a little practice, we can sometimes shift very quickly. And if not, there's probably some traumas there that need to get resolved. And as Rick said, the circle is a great place to do that.
Thanks. Well, if you're watching the recording, welcome. We're going to take a quick 7-minute break. Use that time however feels right to your body, mind, and spirit. And then we'll be back. Welcome back. And as these things go, I had a little experience during our break that I'd like to share. So I'm auditorily sensitive. So auditory information that comes to me carries a lot of impact and a lot of information that's useful in my work. My daughter woke up. She was sleeping in the car. The car's in the garage. Mom was in the other room, and she woke up. And we both heard her wake up, but she's crying out. Mom was heading out to take care of her. Now, my daughter's cry is naturally supposed to get me to respond. What I notice is that in this practice, it now, like it started going, I was downstairs, I was pretty chill, it was about a 2 or 3, started going 3, 4, 5, 6, like it started going up. And by pausing, I could, Mom is on the way, everything's fine, this is normal for her. When she wakes up, she tends to cry, whether you're with her or not. And my vigilance level could very quickly come back down. And I will say that I've had to consciously practice this, and I get a lot of practice because I work at home, that being activated and not shutting it down, but really tuning into what's real, what's happening, does it have my name on it? And so there's a quality of attunement. The rising of your alertness level has information in it. It could be really sensible. A lot of people that are trying to force themselves to be not anxious lose that. And that's why this is the skill to me, is like I have a range of awareness and alertness. It may, like a sudden noise may have me jump to an 8. What's going on? And it's how we become savvy at bringing it back down or keeping it at the right level. I might peak to an 8, but actually I have to take care of something, which was true this morning, which was true yesterday, with a cry. It had my name on it, and so there might be the activation energy to get up and move and tend to it. And then once everything's checked out, it could be I actually can calm myself down. Is it possible? If I can get my nervous system to do this, the way I'm wired, I believe it's possible. And yeah, it really starts helping you feel like you can be responsive more than reactive. And when you react because it's a sudden thing that comes into your vision or your hearing or your body, that you can find the sweet spot where you're using your energy in a way that is useful and beneficial to your well-being, your survival, your well-being.
I love that. I thought that was really helpful for me too, to hear that. And I thought, if it's okay, I'd love to leave it tapping, because a lot of times we learn things when we're very little. And I love watching Rick's daughter, Adira, because she's just this adorable being, but she's like fearless in some ways that I'm like, oh, that's going to not go well. And for some of us, we grew up in families that were much less safe than the one Rick and Jem create for Adira, where we might have learned to be fearful, and we may not need to be quite as fearful now. So if it's okay, I'd like to just lead a tapping on that. So I invite you to take a nice deep breath.
Feet on the ground.
Yeah. Karate chop. I wonder how much of my fear setting is based on being little.
I wonder how much of my fear settings are based on being little. Huh.
I have to be a lot more careful when I'm a very little kid.
I have to be a lot more careful when I'm a little kid.
I'm not quite as dexterous.
Not quite as dexterous.
I don't have as much experience.
I don't have as much experience.
And I'm just a little more fragile.
And I'm a little more fragile.
How many of my settings are set from when I was little?
How many of my settings are still set from when I was little?
And how might I move them if I realize that I'm big and strong now?
And how might I move them if I know I'm bigger and stronger and more resource now?
Top of the head, I have a lot more experience right now.
I do have a lot more experience now.
Eyebrow. Adira often thinks it's fun to dance on the edge of the couch.
Adira often thinks it's fun to dance on the edge of the couch.
Out of the eye, I don't often dance on the edge of the couch.
I'm not usually caught dancing on the edge of the couch.
Under the eye, my childhood experiences might have been more traumatic than Adira's.
My childhood experiences might have been more traumatic than Adira's.
Under the nose, and I might have set my on guard ranges really high.
I might have set my on guard ranges really high.
Chin, What if I let my brain realize that my body has grown up?
What if I let my brain realize that my body has grown up?
Collarbone. And I have a lot more resources and experiences to guide me through.
I have a lot more resources and experiences to guide me through.
And again, I just invite my brain to reevaluate where the guarding needs to be.
I invite my brain to reevaluate where the guarding needs to be.
Top of the head. I wonder if it really needs to be as high as I said it.
Pretty sure it doesn't need to be quite as high as I said it.
Take a nice deep breath. And I just threw in some more wonderings because that's something that a very famous hypnotherapist and therapist used to do. He would do kind of wonderings and just let your body come up with the answer. Because, this is something that's set in the subconscious often. So if we just set those wonderings in there, sometimes they just kind of percolate in the background. And a couple days later, you might notice something different. And that's pretty cool.
And life will give you examples of this, like today, tomorrow, this week.
You might have dreams about it.
Kathy and I are practical engineers where we kind of view a thriving life as something that, there's skills and tools and some engineering. So the process here really is like, oh, I'm noticing I'm pretty darn tense about the boy climbing up the tree.
He's very adventuresome. I've seen him just like go and I'm like, ugh.
Now he actually, from the time he was Adira's age, and Adira's getting this training now, he's been trained by his mother about maintaining points of contact and looking for paths up and paths down and evaluating the strength. He's actually really quick at it. And his level of alertness, awareness, and skill actually is a pretty darn good match for climbing 30 feet in the top of a tree. Okay?
Ants are not as good. I try not to express my fear and then transfer that to him.
Well, and that's what I'm talking about. So like that's a complex sort of situation. But for me, my vigilance is best in that circumstance at about a 4 or 5, where I'm just noticing, is he being alert? I know enough about the skill of tree climbing to notice whether he's in it or not. How do I feel about this now? Like if I'm calm and confident, do I still feel it's okay? Is this feeling like this tree at this moment is something that I have the energy to support and be calm and confident while he does it? He may be very skillful, but maybe I don't have that resource. Now, if I'm owning my own resource that way, it can be like, hey, buddy, I'm just feeling too on guard for me to relax while you're climbing this tree. And if your mom was here, maybe it would be different. But and we have an agreement in our family. If the adult that's responsible doesn't feel that they can handle something, even if the child's convinced that they can do it safely, that's one of the things that we honor.
You get veto power.
But I could picture myself we were tapping as a younger child and not being alert enough when I was playing around in the tree and falling out. And so like, I'm actually picturing, I loved being in trees. Like I loved being in trees. And there's a point at which I stopped climbing more than a certain height. And I started feeling more vigilant. So it's going to be interesting. There's a tree that you can just kind of like sit in its branch, and then you can kind of stand on that branch and kind of feel for how vigilant you are. And even as I'm practicing the visualization of it, I can notice that, sitting on that branch, a 3 would be a sweet spot. I could really enjoy the feel of being.
You don't want to pass out and fall off your leg.
Okay. And then as I stand up on that branch, well, now 4 or 5, there's a point at which my skill would start like being on edge.
Well, I think there is a point where, if you feel nervous about something, it's okay to ask, do I have the skills for this? Because your body or your brain might be going, I haven't practiced this enough and I need to, like Jem has worked with the kids since they were born to help them climb and be very dexterous. A deer climbs ladders that I wouldn't go up.
Right. And this, I think, takes us to one of the things that I also, one of the things that stops people from doing things that they want to do and be thriving, is this level of on guardness. There's also a quality of preparation and resilience. So, for example, I know people that talk about what they're going to do and what they're going to publish and what they're going to put out on social media, but they never actually do it. And if we have the kind of relationship where, whether professionally, it's easier, but sometimes with friends, you can say, hey, what do you imagine is going to happen that's going to be like beyond you to cope with? And they say, well, I just can't handle criticism. Well, if you're going to post on social media and you just can't handle criticism, it's really normal for your on guardness to get high enough that you procrastinate. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to put that out there because our emotional resilience, as emotional freedom coaches, we look at like, what's the emotional resilience that you're going to need? If you're going to climb a tree, you need to have a certain amount of strength and balance and skill. It's different if you're just climbing a tree to get away from a bear. Not a good plan, actually, because they're better climbers. But if you're going to be out there and put something out into any context where you're going to share it, but your nervous system feels like criticism is the end of the world. That's where you will find like your on guardness won't come down because you actually aren't resilient enough. So we're going to take in our coaching work, we take care of of course they're going to criticize. I criticize. It's okay. It's not the end of the world. Oh, well, when they criticize me, that was horrible. We do tapping and engage around it so that criticism is maybe part of the ecosystem, but it's not what really matters to us. You develop some psychological skill. I get criticism. Kathy gets criticism. I have a number of different ways that I like handle that energy without it like impacting my soul and shutting me down. And that's also possible. But if you're noticing your on guardness not coming down, it could be like, what emotional skill do I feel like I need more of? What physical skill might I need more of in order to feel like my on guardness isn't just life, psyche protection, life protection.
I think that too, sometimes I've had stress because I've had to, because of life, things push faster than my system was really ready to adjust to. Like if I could have taken in baby steps, I could have probably navigated much better. But if I'm having to take huge steps for time deadlines or whatever, having more resources and humans around me, more support, there's other ways we can support ourselves if we recognize that. So if we have the skills to do something, but it still feels overwhelming, is there a way to slow down? Is there a way to give ourselves more support? Is there a way to give ourselves breaks or other things like that? So I love that the skill set is very important. If we don't have the skill set to do it, it's going to feel impossible anyway. But there are other ways you can get resources. I've helped a number of people with their taxes because it was so scary for them. I did emotional support for their taxes, and I'm also pretty good with numbers. So I was able to kind of guide them forward. And that helped them get things done that they wouldn't have been able to face otherwise. And we had to outsource some of it because they didn't want to get the skill set. They're like, no, I don't ever want to learn how to do this. I'm like, okay, you will get someone that will do this for you, but you still have to gather the data.
Sleight of the hand, even though I've been on guard about a lot of things in my life.
Even though I've been on guard about a lot of things in my life.
The things that matter.
The things that matter.
I want skill around. To be able to engage.
With
surprising calm confidence, even. Being on guard gives me information. Top of the head. Being on guard gives me information.
Being on guard gives me information.
Eyebrow. I want to get the information.
I want to get the information.
Side of the eye. And I want to be clear.
And I want to be clear.
Under the eye. What does this actually mean to me?
What does this actually mean to me?
Under the eyes. What is the actual threat?
What is the actual threat?
Chin. Is it an actual threat to my life?
Is it an actual threat to my life?
Hold on. Is it an actual threat to my psyche?
Is it an actual threat to my psyche?
My self-image?
Self-image.
My identity?
My identity.
Under the arm. Those are all big deals.
Those are all big deals.
And I want to be clear.
And I want to be clear.
Up the head. And I want to be calm and confident too.
And I want to be calm and confident too. I love how you broke that down too, because I think when we're at an 8, 9, 10, 11, it's sometimes hard to break down and say like we can be so vigilant and so tense that we're not like, what is it that I'm actually afraid of? What am I actually think will happen? What do I actually need to get through this? And if we can calm ourselves down a little, someone recommended before breathing practices can be really good. Or you can do square breathing, or you can do slower exhale than inhale. There's ways to help our body soothe down a little. We have the opportunity at that point to go, oh, when I was 3, falling out of a 30-foot tree would have been not good for me. Like that makes sense. Maybe I don't have to climb a 30-foot tree, even as an adult, or maybe I get a rope, like harness, or like, what do I need to start feeling safe about this? Do I need more training or whatever it is? Or do I not want to climb the tree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah.
Lots of yawning on that last one. That's always great. It's a good sign of relaxing and releasing things.
Mm-hmm. So again, an invitation to tune to something that you'd like to do maybe this week. That's not such a huge step that it would require, ginormous change in your life. Something that feels like you are more on guard. You're just aware, like, I'd like to do that, but I'm actually feeling more on guard. It's kind of pushing it away. And what I'd like is clarity, I don't have to do it, but I'd like a little more clarity from a place of awareness rather than on guardness. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you can feel into your number. And sometimes the number doesn't come with much body reaction. Like the thing I'm imagining, that my number is an 8. My body feels like pretty chill. I think mostly because it's saying, well, I'm not going to let that happen.
No chance.
Yeah, we're not going back to contact improv dance. So that's the side that, like or someone brought up earlier, you don't have to necessarily be scared or panicked or anxious about it. We can just be like withdrawn. So how do you want to feel? And I'm going to put out a number like 4 to 5. If you're above that, if you're at a 4 or 5, maybe pick a 3, 4. And tap your collarbone and imagine yourself like, how would I be sitting right now if instead of an 8 about that, I was at 5? Free to choose, free to be clear, no pressure one way or the other, but aware of the dynamics, what it would ask of me and my energy, how it fits with what I'm really wanting in my life right now. Oh, some of the emotional uncertainty about it. Okay. Yeah, so at an 8, it felt very different. Now it's starting to be more matter of fact. Like it's not just my brain and visual looking at it internally, but my heart and my gut are starting to come online. you can encourage that by like taking your hands and rubbing your heart or holding your lower belly, feeling your feet on the floor. These are grounding exercises. And when we're up at an 8, 9, 10, very hard to be grounded. It's not what our nervous system is saying is smart. At a 5, it's like grounded. Okay, I'm here. And how does it look if it moved at all? Or even if it didn't move at all, has it changed in how it looks, feels, or sounds to you?
I think sometimes using it on small things can be useful. I was using it on taking out the trash because I need to take out the trash tonight. And I realized that during COVID, I would go out and I'd like look both ways, make sure there were no humans coming. Like there was a lot more risk for me. Like I was going where humans could interact with me, and I didn't necessarily want to wear my mask just out to the front of the driveway. And I'm realizing I'm still carrying some of that stress. And I was just like, what if I just took the trash out? I don't have to like, one, there's not a lot of traffic right now, but there's not a lot of people out there, but I don't have to be so alert. I've had my booster. I'm like, okay, if I accidentally like cross paths with someone, I'm not going to keel over with COVID. So I don't know, I like the idea of practicing this with my brain. Like, oh, this task that seems like it's a little high, my range seems a little high for me. Can I bring it down? Just like the tapping you just did. That was great.
And allowing I believe our emotions have intelligence, and that they want to find a sweet spot, a thriving spot for us. They're willing to be alert to provide support for our primitive brain's survival, but the primitive brain can really lock us into a lot of things that are overstrained, not very thriving. If you take anything in your life today, tomorrow, this week, and you're aware, hey, I'm holding some of that old tension that felt really smart and right for me. Vigilance back then, out and about, but right now, a 6. I can empty the trash. I can take out the recycling at a 6, I think. And if it goes up, that's fine. But I'm going to imagine myself as I go over to the door, as I take that first look. We did a workshop on the powerful pause. Highly recommend and invite that one, because it embodies the moment where you pause as you make a transition. I pause at the door. I pause as I take a step outside. I pause as I look around my environment, and I calibrate myself. You will get to a place, I believe, that you will have recalibrated, and you'll be able to fluctuate in a way that feels more natural, less like, I believe that our being notices when we're overstrained or over vigilant, overstrained, over anxious, in a way that is calling the question, like, oh yeah, I'm kind of in that upper range. It's not moving. It's okay. At least I'm aware of it. When I go inside and I'm safe again after the recycling, maybe I'll take an extra 3 minutes to breathe. And so I went all the way up to an 8 instead of a 6. I want to at least come back down into my zone for the couch. My couch zone is a comfy couch. I like my oh, kitty. There's a range, and you feel yourself come back in. So even if you were hyper on a walk or a drive or something else, you get good at unwinding that.
Yeah, I love that.
And do you want to bring us to a close, Kathy?
Yeah.
You do that so beautifully.
I love if you just take a breath and notice that you gave yourself this last hour and a half with really cool people, all working on the same thing. And if you would just give yourself some appreciation, some warmth. Imagine maybe your hands feeling full of love and appreciation, and kind of like soothing on your heart or any part of your body that feels stressed. And Know that you did something really good for yourself. You opened doorways, asked yourself questions, gave yourself some skill sets that you might not have had before. And this is something that's going to serve you not just for the rest of today, but for the rest of your life. If you do a little bit of practice and anchor this, it can change the trajectory of your life so that you'll have more ease. You'll have room for more rest and digest and more play. And you can spend your energy on things that are really worthwhile. When there's time when if you need to really be on guard, you'll have the energy and bandwidth to do it. So if you can, just really appreciate yourself. You did an awesome job. You chose to spend your time here with us, giving yourself this, and just like, you
Mm.
rock.
Thank you. Thank you all. And we continue. If you're finding this through a Google search or however this has been shared with you and you're not familiar with us, thrivingnow.com/subscribe will add you to our list. We have a community center, and it's a good place to practice sharing and feeling calm and confident in a zone where the space is being held by our circle and many of the people that are part of our community that really value a space where people can share something that's artistic or edgy for them and be received in a way that allows their being to be more calm, confident about being in their artistry. So thrivingnow.center as our community center. So thank you, Kathy. Thank you all.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Al.
Bye for now.